What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, looking at a new amazing and borderline absurd fusion card that is going to be released at maximum prices. This card is hella powerful. It is exceptionally good. The card is just flat out amazing. I'm probably going to end up running out of adjectives by the end of this video. It's called Transcendental Fusion. Here's what it looks like. It apparently is an ultra rare in the new set. And I mean, hot damn, guys, this card is just fucking incredible. And it makes me very happy as a fusion enthusiast because after Konami kind of killed off Shadows, I was kind of wondering where the fusion mechanic was going to be, as far as like in the meta. But, they gave us Metaphos, they gave us ABC. Those are two extremely viable and good fusion-based decks. And then we have like Fusion Enforcers coming out in February. That'll give us the Eidolons. It'll give us more Fluffle supports. And then in the Dimension box, which is right around the corner, we'll of course have, more Lunalight supports and like Melodious. So it's a really good time to be a fusion player right now. And I mean, I can't even say that this is icing on the cake because honestly, this is like getting another fucking cake. Like this card is really just that good. It's a normal spell card and the first line of text is just like arguably my favorite part of the card. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this card's activation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have what I like to call a spell speed 4. I call cards spell speed 4s, things like super polymerization, cards that you simply cannot chain anything to. You can't even chain a spell speed 3 to what I like to call a spell speed 4. This means that this card is basically just giving the middle finger to Vanity's Emptiness and Totally Awesome. And if you had things like Solemn Warning or you had a Magician's Navigation in the grave, like you can't use them. Your opponent just gets to sit there and laugh at you because those cards just don't work. They won't be able to activate or resolve, and this card will always go through when it's activated. The first effect says pay 2,000 light points. Fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters you control as fusion materials. So the first effect is pretty much kind of like a fusion substitute, or I guess actually that's like the perfect comparison. You only get to use the cards on your field, but if you really think about it, for decks like Gem Knights and Lunalights or like Fluffles, that really isn't that difficult at all. For Lunalights, I mean, it's as simple as just summoning White Rabbit and then getting Black Sheep back from the grave, and bam, there's your 2 monsters right there. Or we know that Edgem Sabers can be summoned from the graveyard, so it's a very easy condition to meet. That's why a lot of those decks do run like 1 copy of fusion substitutes. The second effect is what makes this card so damn incredible. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one monster fusion summoned using this card's effect. Special summon all the fusion materials for that monster's fusion summon from your graveyard, but their attacks and defense become 0 and their effects are negated. You can pretty much ignore the entire, their attacks are 0 or whatever. Who cares about that? Same thing about their effects. The important thing is you get your damn monsters back. And I don't have to tell you how incredible that is. And by the way, you don't have to wait a turn. That effect can be used the same exact turn that this card is sent to the graveyard. So you don't have to wait a turn like Breakthrough Skill or Galaxy Cyclone or a whole bunch of other cards like Navigation. You can just activate it immediately. And even if they don't have effects and they don't have stats, who cares? You can tribute them, you can synchro with them, you can exceed with them, or most notably, you can fusion summon again with them. So like they have so much utility. And a lot of cards like Lazuli and Black Sheep, they will be able to activate again. The reason that I know that is because if you play Lunar Lights, Lunalight Tiger, she basically has the same exact effect where she can reborn like a Black Sheep from your graveyard and her effect is negated, but even if you fuse with it, you still get the effect again. So there are a lot of monsters that you can bring back, and it doesn't matter if their effects are negated, you still end up getting the search anyways, or you still end up getting some bonus. So basically this card is going to add a lot of pressure to, or just a lot of power, a lot of to those plays of decks like Lunar Lights or potentially Fluffles. I think it's going to be a power card very similar to something like Soul Charge because these fusion decks are super aggressive. Fluffles, Lunar Lights, they don't want the duel to go past turn 2. They're like Mermail, you know what I mean? So they don't really run things like Soul Charge because that card makes it so they can't attack. This card basically gives them 2 fusions potentially and 2,000 light points. Like who cares? You don't run traps anyway. These decks are super aggressive. 2,000 light points is nothing for them. So honestly, as great as this card is, guys, I actually could see this card potentially, I know it's early, but it's not as good as Super Poly and it's not as good as like, Future Fusion. And by the way, I'm not going to, keep complaining about how we don't have those cards anymore because this card more than makes up for it. But if there was a fusion deck that started popping off and playing this card at like multiples, I could totally see this card getting limited because it's not quite as good as those, but it's in the ballpark of those amazing cards. So let me know what you guys think. think this card is absolutely incredible. I'd probably run like 1 or 2 copies in like Lunar Lights or Fluffles or something like that, just to experiment with it. Same thing with like Gem Knight. So I think the card is excellent. Let me know what you guys think of it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already.